I'm from Bucher Hydraulics. I've been with Bucher about 12 years. Prior to that, I was an electronics technician in the Navy. I've been working with SolidWorks. I think the first release was in 1998 that I worked with, so I've got a bit of experience. So hopefully we'll learn something about configurations, design tables. Feel free to interrupt with questions. Let me know if you can't hear me. I'm going to try not to stay in PowerPoint too much. And I did have to switch laptops, so I might be stumbling around a little bit. So to start with the part files. Maybe. Okay. That was more difficult than I thought. Okay, so I'm not sure what level everyone's at, so I'm gonna try and cover basics and a little advanced functionality. Right here, I just made kind of a basic part with a cavity in it, and then I assume you can control a whole bunch of different things with configurations. So right here, I'm just switching the what's suppressed, what's unsuppressed, switching some dimensions. Purposes of configurations. Minimize repetitive design work. If you have parts that are similar, configurations are probably the best way to go. Reduces modeling time. Keep similar parts and assemblies in one file. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a little clumsy. Okay, so it's not gonna like that. So if I can find the file. I had everything open on my laptop. So I guess we'll go to something different. So if you go into your configuration properties, you have quite a few different things that are very powerful tools in here. Oh no, do a lot of people use custom properties in your parts where you're controlling, part number, consumer information, ERP? One of the things that we do is we have a hook into our ERP, so we can actually import all of our information and create custom properties in our part files with that, so that if we have a part that we make that we sell to 10 different customers, we can put 10 different custom properties with that customer's part file name in it. So that's one of the things you can do with custom properties here. So you can get to it from there. You can also get it to that from your file. Another thing is your bill of material options. So typically I use my configuration name for my bill of material. You can change this to a user specified name or all configurations to use your document name. Another option in the part is to suppress new features. So if this is checked, if I add 2 more cavities in this configuration, they're not going to show up in the other configurations. If it's unchecked, then if I add it in this one, it's going to go to all of them. Another option, configuration specific color. Kind of does what the label says. If I want this configuration to be red, I can specify that here without changing any of the geometry colors or the face colors. So where it does get a little more interesting is when you get into the assemblies. This is a example. It's about a relief valve. It's got quite a few different configurations here in the assembly. Basically changing screw sizes, spring pressure ratings, but we get them all in one file, so it's easy when we're in our large assemblies. If I want to switch it out to a different specification, I can just click on it. So our properties get a little different when you get into the assemblies. These bill of material options, I know this is one of the questions I get asked a lot. If you choose show, that's going to let your bill of material choices drive what this part does. So in your bills of material, for instance, if I have show, my bill of material options over here for top level parts only and indented, my bill will drive from here. However, if I change this to hide, it will always hide the child components names. Even if I'm choosing to show them in the bill of material, it won't allow it if I choose hide. If you show promote, it will always show it, regardless of what the bill of material says. I can show you the... No, I can't, because those are on my computer. I'll show you some examples of switching those in a drawing in a minute. And then also part number that's displayed in the bill of materials. You can change that to be the document name or user specified name, same as in a part. So I'm going to change that to promote. I'm going to go back into this drawing. Instead of having the 2 lines like we were just at, it's now expanded all the components for the configuration that I chose promote on. So previously, this showed my top level. I have 2 RVs in this assembly. Same file, 2 different configurations. So it left the one, but on the second one it showed all my subcomponents. If I go back to here and take that back to show, it's going to switch that back. So you have to be careful if you find weird things going on with your bills of material. This is the first place to look, because it's probably what's happening. I haven't found a good use for the hide, but I suppose if you wanted to really keep components quiet, yes?
Good use is like if you say you download a cylinder and it's an assembly of parts, like say SMC cylinder, you choose hide, but you don't need to see that there's an O-ring in the cylinder or that there's a piston rod or the body or cap or the bolts. It will show just that assembly as one part.
Correct, but even if your bill from the drawing, you can't change that. So I guess a good If you wanted to expand some of your items in your top level bill, but not some, you could change them to the hide. That might be a good use for it. Some of the other options and configuration properties is your BOM type with your numbering, detailed numbering, and flat numbering. So if I go into indented, I can expand out all my sub-assemblies in here. If I change the option to detailed numbering, I get 1.1, 1.2, so I know which is a part of. When I balloon, it'll balloon to those sub-numbers as well. So it's really useful if you're doing, assembly drawings and details of that nature. Flat numbering basically takes all the components, even if they are the same component. So it'll give you that full bill. Configurations in your bill. If you want to show more than one item, so you can do each of your configurations. You can do that over here in configurations by checking the ones you want to show. I don't know how many people have used the property manager. This is kind of a cool option you can put into your parts. If you want to configure a component, we have a lot of components, tubes, our RVs, for example, which the part numbers are based off what pressure settings and what components are in there, but I'm not necessarily going to memorize what each part number corresponds to. So one of the things you can use is this configuration publisher, and you can set your parameters. You can choose, I just want to choose the configuration name. You can just choose the part number, or you can set up parameters. So for this tube, what angle do I want? So you can set up your different parameters so you can choose the tube by the properties you've assigned to it. So anytime you drop this into assembly, this dialog will pop up, so the user can choose it according to however they have the part set up or however they need to insert it into their assembly to find what they need. And this is the property manager for this. It's driven off the design table. So it's kind of like a visual basic setup where you've got your little dialogues. You can pull them in. You can change what variables are driven by it. You can also, if you publish your content on 3D Content Central, you can publish it from here. Depending on, you can make things visible. If it's got a bend angle, then it will ask, does it need this length? So things of that. So for instance, I just dropped our relief valve. I can choose what pressure range I want, whether it's tamper-proof, and it changes the configuration accordingly. So moving on to design tables. Obviously a really powerful tool. Basically, design tables drive your configurations. First thing, this one already has a design table in it. So every time I open it up, it's going to give me any parameters that aren't in my design table already. States of features, states of components, dimensions, custom properties. Does everyone fairly familiar with design tables, or anyone really new to design tables? A couple people? Okay. So basically how they're set up, your first column is going to be all your configurations. And then subsequent columns will be everything you're driving from your design table. Column headers typically start out with this kind of format. You got your $sign. Then for instance, this configuration, this is your parameter. It's going to be at. So for instance, in this one, we're driving the configuration of this subcomponent of the assembly. So it's at this subcomponent at instance 1. So if I had 5 of the same component, my instances would be 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the brackets. Custom states, same thing, same format, $sign, what you're controlling, at what component. Custom properties, if you want to drive what your property is, it will be the PRP at and then your custom property name. This is no big secret. This is in the help, this information. I put it in an Excel sheet here, which makes it a little neater to read, which I think they're going to post everything. So basically, this gives you all your parameters, what you can put in those parameters, like the state, suppressed, S, unsuppressed, U. Either one will work. And what the default value will be if that's in your design table and it's left blank. You can change your dimension tolerances, colors, pretty much anything can be driven from a design table if you know the right hook into it. So for instance, this is a good example of using configurations for a screw. Why would you want to have 20 different part files for a screw that's going to change length? Table. So you can put in all your information. You can show this all in the drawing. So if you have a drawing for your part that you want to look up and reference this information, you can show the design table on it. Hoping to find one without a design table. We'll just add one to here. To add a design table, you just insert tables, design table. So you have a few different options. I usually use blank. That gives me the most control over my table. On your controls, if you allow model edits to update the design table, that means if a user changes something in your assembly, it will go out and update that design table for you. You may or may not want that to happen. If you want a high level of control over your part, I'd recommend blocking that. And then adding new rows and columns in the design table. So if you have a new parameter you've added, a new configuration, warn when then updating the design table. This really is only effective if you're allowing model edits. Enabling the drop-down list. This really slows things down. For the most part, if you know what's in your design table and you understand your parameters, you shouldn't need a drop-down menu. It makes it a lot slower to rebuild, so I really don't recommend having that. So right now I have a default configuration, so I want to add that. I also have a description parameter, so I'll go ahead and add that. So since I've chosen those two items, it's going to go ahead and add those for me. And you can just type in if you want to do and we'll suppress. So it went ahead and suppressed that for me because my design table drove that. Is there anything, we've got about 10 minutes, is there anything anyone's looking to find out specifically?
If you have, say, put two instances of your tube in there, say one's 30 degrees like you got, one's 90 degrees. And you've got an assembly. I'm more looking, I've run into where I have configurations, and I'm using two different lengths. And I'm trying to show those in the bill of material, and I have a difficult time getting them to show both lengths. But yet, if I have a cylinder in there that has, the only way I could get it to do it is if I some of the options in the bill of materials.
Okay, so like for instance here where I have these two tubes and they have different configurations of the same part, and you're saying this would not show up in your bill of material as two different parts?
Depending on the options you checked on the bill of material, it would or wouldn't, but there's some instances when I want those configurations to show up separately, but in some instances, say I have a cylinder that's shown extended in one and shown retracted in the other. I don't want those to show up as two separate part numbers.
Okay. Well, there's a couple. So part configuration grouping will do a few different things. Configurations of the same part as separate items. So that would be if I have two configurations, different configurations of the same part in my build, it will show up as two items. If I display the configurations of the same part as one item, it would show up. Actually, I think the other drawing will work better for this. It's a little smaller. So I switched that configurations of the same part as one item. So it says quantity of two, but that's not technically correct because that's not the part number of my other configuration. But because I chose this option, that's what it's going to do.
Right.
Another option is configurations with the same name as one item. So if I had two separate parts, but both the configurations of my parts had the same name, if I choose this, they're both going to show as the same thing. Typically, this one can be useful depending on what you're doing. This is the typical application. Does that somewhat answer the question or not really?
I mean, I've tried all those, every combination of those options, and like say I've got a linear rail that I've got two different lengths used, but like I said, I have a cylinder that I'm showing extended in one and retracted in the other, but I'm trying because it's a configuration, it's saying, well,
The other
I want both cylinders shown as a separate part number, but I don't.
have you ever tried using display states for anything instead of configurations? Display
No.
states I find are kind of overlooked. I think when they initially came out with them, they didn't work real well, and people just said, "Oh, these are no good." This one I'm just controlling colors of my pattern holes, but you can actually control a lot with display states.
Control positions or mates.
Yes. You can hide and show bodies. You can pretty much control just about anything but suppressing and unsuppressing. So for example, you can change positions. That's why when you said extend and retract, that would be a really good example of where you could use a display state and keep in your same configuration.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yep.
Would a display state be kind of a dumb configuration?
It's considered a visual configuration. So you're changing visual properties, but you can also change, where things are positioned if you play with it correctly. I use it a lot. I don't have an example of our product, but we have power packs, and on our drawings we're going to show it without the reservoir, so you can see the pump and everything inside. So instead of having a configuration with these parts suppressed, I have a display state with them hidden, and it takes a lot less memory and performance to use display states. Configurations are going to take more memory. They run a little slower. You have to rebuild them. The display states work pretty well and pretty quickly.
Would you ever, like in your check file here, show that in the seated and in the unseated position?
So, have a display state. We don't.
Could you do that with display states where you're showing, the spring would be,
Yeah.
compressed more and the ball would be moved to a different position? Can you do that with display state?
So let me see how I have this.
Use alternate position.
Yep. So you could. What I would probably do with that is I might have, say, a secondary spring, and you have the alternate position as well. I've not used that functionality specifically, but I know what you're talking about there. What we have done is I might put that in, exclude it from the bill of materials, and then pretend this is in the position I wanted to show it in for this display state. Hide this one in that display state. So it's not switching configurations, but it's visually switching what you see. So it's not the greatest example, but that's how it works. Anything else?
Where'd you come up with, can you show how you get display states?
How? Okay, so they're down here, and you can rename them.
Under configuration? I'm sorry, I can't really see that.
Oh, so it's way down here. Yeah, it's under the configurations.
Okay.
And if you just right click, you can add display states. There's a couple different options with your display states. So usually there's a checkbox here that says link to your configuration.
You gotta right click them. It changed it in 20.
It's in the properties
Oh,
now.
it's in the properties now? Okay. I'm still on 2014, so so link display states to configurations. So if you check that, you see two of them went away. So you can have them for each configuration or for your part or assembly as a whole as to how that's driven. Which was something with it I wanted to go over, but so yeah, display states. They work pretty well when you don't really need an actual configuration. Now, performance-wise, one of the things with configurations, and this works in parts. Did they hide the freeze bar in 2015 as well?
Options. You gotta turn
Okay.
it on and off. Right top, 2/3 of the way down.
I don't know if everyone knows by now about the searching and the options up here. If you don't and you're looking for an option, that's really useful. So the freeze bar. So performance-wise for configurations, and we've done this for quite a few things. If you have a part, you've made it, you're not going to change it, you use it in a ton of large assemblies. Once you've done it, fixed all your configurations, I'm done with it, you can grab this freeze bar, you can pull it down. If you're actually doing this, I'd go ahead and rebuild all the configurations. I'm not going to do that now because it's probably going to lock up the computer. So now when this part is in your large assembly, it's not going to rebuild. So if you're rebuilding your assembly configurations, it skips over this part. So you save a lot of time. I have noticed it adds a little file size to the actual part file when you do this, but it saves assembly rebuild time. So there's a trade-off there. This is not mine, so I'll turn it back off.
That could strictly be done from the top down.
You could stop anywhere you want, but yes, from the top down.
Okay.
That's because of the parent-child.
Okay.
Any other questions? Configurations, design tables?
Do you use that a lot for assemblies too?
The freeze bar?
Design tables?
Oh, design tables and
Yeah.
assemblies? Yes. For instance, in this assembly, we have a design table. It does a few things. One, I have my property manager, so when I drop it in, I can choose those options. And that uses the design table to pull anything you want to show in your property manager has to be shown in the design table. It also drives the description and the custom properties for this part. It also drives the configurations that are used in the tree for each configuration, subcomponents configuration, and the states of the different components in the assembly. So all that's driven from the design table. Another kind of cool thing you can do, and this is in parts and assemblies, if you right click on something in your tree, if I was in a part, I could right click on a feature and choose this configure component. Instead of rebuilding each assembly, or you can do this without a design table and something that doesn't have a design table, you can go in here and change the information about that feature or part for each configuration that you have, so right in one place.
Is there any way to select more than one box at a time?
I have not found that, but it would be really useful.
That'd be good.
You can
I think if
go.
you check one, you can do a photocopy and then highlight the rest and make a photograph.
You can go do it
Check.
right there through the
And then
top.
do it this little
Can you
green,
pull?
or pull, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's
And that might be,
Excel thing,
so I can't say if that works before 2015 or not. I've not tried that before.
I think it's new for 2015.
That's a great enhancement.
That is it looks like an Excel sheet.
So yeah, so you can
do it the opposite way
so you can change your configuration. So even without a design table, this is a quick way to change things across all the configurations of your part. Any other questions? So I think it's 8:15, so 8:12.